Hello everyone, my name is Madeleine Canieago from BBI and this is my submission for the MLTA final exam. The topic that was given to me is reading recount text. So let's just get into it. The presentation will be divided into three main parts. The first one is the teaching methods and approaches that are used and also the rationale behind it. And next, the step-by-step lesson plan. And last one is the material samples for the lesson. So as we know, being a teacher has been one of the most popular jobs in the world. And I think as time goes on, the teacher's role will never cease as knowledge needs to be passed down from one another, but also in a proper and systematical way. That's why a well-organized and thorough lesson plan is needed and important for a number of reasons. So the first one is that it helps the teacher to stay on track and ensure that all of the necessary materials is covered in a logical and coherent manner. And also the second one is that it's to help the teacher to anticipate and prepare for any challenges that may come up during the lesson. Now I will refer to the teaching context given to me. The students are Indonesian junior high school students, and most of the students lack understanding in reading texts and are still not able to arrange their ideas and have yet to learn to organize them well in writing. The topic of the lesson is recount text, and then the skills and English knowledge system is the reading and grammar. The main objective is to teach them recount text and guide them to learn the difference between many types of reading text, especially recount and narrative text. And lastly, the number of the students in the class will be 40. First off, I will be utilizing text-based instruction as the method for this lesson plan. One of the key characteristics of this method is the explicit teaching of structures and grammatical features. Moreover, it will influence on current language teaching based on the use and explicit focus on different text types, which I think will be most appropriate for the students since the main objective is to teach them about recount text and then learn the difference between recount and narrative text. Next, since the students have difficulties in forming the text due to many factors, such as a lack grammatical skills, limited vocabulary, or not knowing the structure of the text, and then many more. Therefore, I think that bottom-up processing will be appropriate to be used as it focuses on understanding the text by looking at the individual meanings or grammatical characteristic of the unit of the text, such as letters, words, phrases, and many more. After that, the structural view is utilized as the main approach due to its focus on mastering the grammar system. Structural view views language as a system that structurally related elements for the coding of meaning. So I think that it would be more suitable compared to other approaches views that are provided. And then for the process-oriented theory, that these focus on learning processes and then habit formation, induction, etc. And then learning refers to the formal study of language rules and is a conscious process. Therefore, acquisition refers to the natural assimilation of language rules through the using language for communication. And that's it for the methods and approaches. Now I will be explaining about the lesson plan for this course. So this is the lesson plan outline. I have put the context in the top of the paper, the grade, the subject, the date, the materials, number of week, and then also the level of the students. And then the lesson will be about 45 minutes roughly, and the focus and the goals of the lesson is to learn about recount text. And then the second one is to differentiate between recount and narrative text. And lastly is to being able to create their own recount text after the lesson ends. So here's the structure or the activity for the lesson. The first one will be opening. It will last for about 3 minutes. The teacher's role will be checking the attendance list and then call the students one by one. And then the students also will be helping the teacher for checking the attendance list by raising their hand. So the next stage will be engage. Ask the students, the teachers will ask the students to examine the text provided in the PPT, and then the students will examine the text provided in the PPT. It will last for 2 minutes. And the next one, we're still in the engage part, is to show the students an audio of someone reading out loud a recount text. And then the students will listen to the audio that's provided, and the audio will be around 1 minute, but we will anticipate the replay of the audio to help students if they miss some parts. And lastly, in the engage section is to ask the students to guess what is the purpose of the last two materials given. Of the first is the text, and the second one is the audio. So yeah, the students will guess the purpose of the last two materials given. It will be for about 3 minutes. And we're moving on to the study section or study stage. The first one, the teacher will introduce students to recount text. It is many things. We will start by definition, such as also words that are frequently used in recount text, and etc. Therefore, the students will learn about recount text based on the definition, the words that are frequently used, and then etc. And it will last about 10 minutes. Next one, in the study section, that the teacher will introduce the difference between recount and narrative text. And then the students will learn the difference between recount and narrative text. So for this one, I'm thinking that since, let's see the last slide. Since I've put that this lesson plan is on week 3, so I'm imagining that in the previous meeting that they are studying about narrative text. So since we're now learning about recount text, then we're just learning about the differentiate between the two. So they have learned about the two. Okay. So yeah, the last one is learn the difference, blah, blah, blah. It will be for about 5 minutes. And the next section is to activate. We will ask the students to create their own recount text based on what they've learned about recount text with topic earliest memory. So therefore, the students will create their own recount text based on what they've learned about recount text with topic earliest memory. The duration for this will be 12 minutes. I think that it's quite enough to create a simple paragraph. I mean, not really a paragraph, but I think that they are able to structure it and blah, blah, blah. The next one will be the teacher will be asking two volunteers to read their recount text in front of the class. And the students will read their recount text in front of the class. Since there's only two volunteers, I think that 5 minutes will be enough for the two. And also for a little feedback session, I think it will be enough. And lastly, that we're going to conclude today's materials to help the teacher to and then the students will help the teacher to conclude today's material. It will be about 3 minutes. So the total will be 45 minutes. Okay, this is the material sample that are going to be used in my lesson. The first one is that I'm going to introduce the definition of recount text. As you can see that I've put the definition, like recount text is text that retells about one story, action, or activity that has happened in the past. And the purpose is to entertain or to inform the readers. And this is the example of the recount text that is on the Engage part 1, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, it is for the Engage part 1. Okay, so moving on. I also will be explaining that recount text is divided into 3 parts. The first one is the orientation, as it gives the readers the background information needed to understand the text, such as who was involved, where it happened, and when it happened. And the next one is the events, a series of events ordered in a chronological sequence. And lastly is the reorientation, is where about a personal comment about the writer, about the event or what happened in the end. I also will be providing language features of recount text, such as first one is introducing personal participants such as I, my group, my teacher, or my father, etc. And such as using chronological connections, then first, using linking verb, was, were, saw, using action verb, look, go, change, and lastly is using simple past tense, since we are using it to retell an event that is already happening in the past. So we have to use simple past tense. And I also will be providing the difference between recount text and narrative text. Uh, to see that, I provided the purpose and also the kind of events. So in here, the students can realize the difference and then also analyze the difference between the two text type. That is the end of my presentation. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope that it will be a great one. Thank you, everyone.